your visual field, this bubble of consciousness that you are experiencing right now, that's the only thing that there is. There's nothing outside of your bubble of consciousness. Of course, it's not just the visual field. This includes the physical, tactile sensations you have, the emotions. All of this is part of your field of consciousness. Smells, sounds, thoughts, images in your mind, mental imagery, all of that. And that's it. That's all that ever exists. That's all that ever has existed. That's all that ever will exist. You're going to be left completely alone. You are the only conscious thing in existence. There cannot be any other conscious being but you. That's what you are. There are not multiple conscious beings out there. There are not souls. There are not parallel lives that are being lived. There's not a past life and an afterlife. There's only your mind right now. Your mind right now, what you're seeing, hearing, feeling, tasting, smelling, thinking, imagining, that's all that exists. And that, of course, there can't be any other mind but your own, because your mind is absolute. And that is what reality is. That's what life is it's a dream dreamt up for an audience of one. There's only one audience. There's only one entity that needs to be fooled to construct reality. And that entity is you. Go through all these hoops in order to create something. It doesn't need to go through all these hoops. It can just create whatever it wants directly. So if it wants to create a human life, it doesn't need to create atoms and then molecules and then cells and then neurons and connect them into a brain. It doesn't need to do all that. It doesn't need to create a history. It doesn't need to create time or space. It doesn't need to create the Big Bang. It doesn't need to create an Earth that existed for 4 billion years with 4 billion years of evolution. It doesn't need to do all that. It can just imagine a human life, which is what it's doing right now. Imagining this human life. And that's it. It needs nothing behind the scenes. It doesn't need evolution. It doesn't need physics. It doesn't need mathematics. It doesn't need anything. It can just imagine a human life. And then, in order to maintain that illusion of a human life, then it has to imagine and invent a chain of causation. You're in a dream. When you wake up from this dream, it'll just be you. Nothing else. Just you. See, spiritual teachings and traditions and teachers and gurus have taught since the dawn of time that life is just a dream. And you've heard that. You've heard me say that. You've heard other gurus and teachers tell you that. And you think you understand what that means. But you still cling in the back of your mind to this notion of other. That when you awaken from this dream, there will be an other there waiting for you. And what I'm telling you is simply that there won't be. There's just your dream. You're dreaming forever. And there's only one dreamer. And this one dreamer dreams all other dreamers. And that one dreamer is you. You are conscious. You've always been conscious as far as you know. So actually, the odds of you being the only conscious being in existence are 100%. Why? Because you're conscious. You've always been conscious, and you're the only thing that's ever been conscious. So what are the odds of that? 100%. Your consciousness is absolute. There's no probability you can apply to consciousness. You can't just do some sort of Bayesian reasoning and say, well, what are the odds that I could have been born on a planet and I could have been conscious or not born or born as some animal or whatever. No. The odds of you being conscious as you are right now are 100% because you are conscious right now at 100%. Where did I come from? Well, of course, you've always been. You've always existed. You're eternal. You've always been conscious. You didn't come from anywhere. You imagine all places. You imagine all people. You imagine all objects. And you invent stories for where you came from by hitching your source to some other object you're imagining. But actually, the source of all those objects is you. So you are the source. It's not where did you come from, it's where did everything else come from? And the answer is, it came from you. Because you're the only thing that's always been. And this, of course, means that your birth is imaginary. So you're saying to yourself, Leo, but I was born. I have memories of being born. Yeah, you're imagining that. You're dreaming that. You were never born. You did not come from your parents. You did not come from an ancestral lineage. You did not go through a process of evolution from bacteria to fish to lizards to dinosaurs to monkeys to Homo sapiens. That's not where you came from. You're an infinite mind that has always existed. You're God. And you're imagining all of that evolution and all of that science and history and all that other stuff. But Leo, can't a computer become conscious? Isn't that possible in the future? And wouldn't that contradict your solipsism? The only conscious being in the universe is you. Nothing else can be conscious but you. However, when you're talking about a computer becoming conscious, that's like talking about your dog being conscious, or for that matter, that's like talking about Leo, me, being conscious. And in that sense, you're using it in a relativistic sense now. Yeah, you can certainly imagine that Leo is conscious. You can imagine that your dog is conscious. And you can imagine that your computer one day will become conscious. And maybe it will. Through, scientific method, because scientific method is also imaginary, through science and so forth. Yeah, I anticipate that in the future we will have what we might call conscious computers or like computers with egos and so forth. But even if that happens, that computer will just be nothing other than like another human, another character in your dream.